what's up everyone, and welcome to another Warframe video. So during the last dev stream, they showed us a trailer for what's coming up in Fortuna 2.0, or 2.0, part 2, which is coming in, well, this week, so in a couple of days. And one of the things it showed was the spider fight, and also a feature that we've been asking for a really long time now, and that is the ability to use Archwing weapons whilst on foot, which is so nice. I'm guessing we're going to have to use these things to help take down the spiders, is sort of what I'm assuming the use for these is going to be. I'm not entirely sure, but that's sort of what I'm assuming is actually going to be the probable use for them. I don't know whether it's going to go outside of the plane, outside of the, I keep calling them the planes, but they're not the planes. I don't know whether we're going to be able to use them outside of Fortuna, but, you know, we'll see, I guess, as it sort of moves on. I sort of suspect we might be able to use them on the planes at some point, but, again, we'll see. But the thing is, what that's actually led, though, is me having a bit of a think around and looking around on YouTube, and I realised that, honestly, there is a very distinct lack of videos out there on Archwing, like Archwing weapons. Probably because, you know, there's about 5 mods for Archwing weapons, and that means pretty much all the builds are the same. But that's a topic for another day. But yeah, it means I'm actually taking a look at what weapons I think would actually be rather good out on the basically in Fortuna, when we're actually able to use these things in combat. And potentially, if we can use them in the rest of the game, what would be good for the rest of the game as well? So let's start off with, I think, probably my #1 weapon, and that's the Fluxus. I love this thing. Look how beastly this thing looks. It's, as you can see, it sort of claps together to fire out a beam of energy. I'm not entirely sure why it's horizontal. Everything else is vertical, but this is horizontal. That doesn't make any sense to me. But hey. This thing has pretty much infinite punch through as well, so you can shoot through walls, and it has a really good range on it. So the thing I don't really understand or don't know is how all the Archwing stuff is going to translate over into the rest of the game, since a lot of these things are sort of like, a lot of the enemies are just massively upscaled. Like, these are upscaled shield drones, or shield ospreys, or attack drones even. So, like, I don't know how this is going to scale and how it's going to sort of translate into the rest of the game, and whether this is going to keep the range it's got, whether it's going to keep the damage it's got. But, I mean, at the very least, I know it's going to be a very effective weapon because of this huge punch through that it's got. Provided it keeps that, I think it's going to be really good for clearing a lot of enemies at once. But, you know what the best thing is, where they showed us this? Not only did they show us that we are going to be able to use Archwing weapons in combat, but the Corpus are going to have a unit with the Fluxus as well. So we're going to have this thing fired back at us, which is going to be a rather interesting experience. I can't wait to see kind of what it does to us, really. But the Fluxus is one of my favourite weapons. Actually, you know, scratch that. It is my favourite Archwing weapon by quite a long way. It's got theatre, it looks really good, and it actually is very strong. Like, there is, I mean, there's very few weapons out there that can clear a group, like, quite as efficiently as the Fluxus does. It is hard to use because it does have travel time, so it means that if you're at extreme ranges, so like here, for example, I mean, it's not really an extreme range, but if they were moving a bit quicker, they'd have been harder to hit. So it does take a bit of getting used to. There you go, like, there you go, I had a bit of a, like those guys, like, trying to predict their flight path is a lot more difficult. Yeah, there you go, look. So now you can sort of see the travel time in action. Like, eventually they'll sort of line up, but it takes a little bit of getting used to because of the travel time. But once you actually get it lined up and once you get it dialed in, there is very few things that can actually, like, can clear as quickly as this. And I just love its mixture of theatre, its sound, like the way it looks. It's a very effective weapon, and one that I like a lot. I am going to put the build on the screen as well, the one that I'm using right now. It's pretty much a mixture of crit and crit, basically. It's just crit and elemental, like, there's nothing amazing to it, and this is, as I say, pretty much the standard build on all of the weapons here, so it's nothing really too special. But I really think you should give the Fluxus a go when you get out to the orb. It's gonna, I guarantee you this thing is gonna be good. Like, even if they do, like, mess around with the stats a little bit to try and balance it with the rest of the game, this thing, I guarantee you, is going to still be very good. So that brings us on to the next weapon I would say to give a go when the second part of Fortuna does hit, as we sort of laggily try and find the ship. And that is the Grineer heavy flak cannon, and that's the Grattler. We've been shot at this thing for, like, well, shot at by this thing for the last, what, 18 months or so? Because this is the weapon that the heavy gunners actually use in the planes, basically. And was honestly the weapon that really made us think that Archwing weapons were going to be usable in sort of like in the rest of the game at some point. And it pretty much operates on the same principles as a sort of like a real-life flak gun, which is it just puts out a whole, like, a wall of explosive shots. So you can see it's exploding on contact here. There we go. If I do this, you can see it exploding after a certain amount of time. So it's basically, like, it is literally a flak gun. But the downside of that means it does actually have self-damage, and that could be a bit of a problem in the rest of the game. The thing about the Corpus is, especially if we're only able to use these against the Corpus right now, is that if there are things like scrambers and combos and whatever, they all like to get in close. And that could be a massive problem with a self-damage weapon. But I think the payoff is going to definitely be worth it. In terms of sustained damage, I think the Grattler really could be one of the best out there. This really can push out a lot of damage very quickly, especially since it's got really decent crit stats, as you can see. I'll just whack them up on screen really quickly now. It's got very decent crit. So the damage output from this is going to be very high. And if you need to do something like keep shields down or something along those lines, then I think that this is going to be the way to do it. It might not have the same sort of wave clear as the Fluxus does, but like I say, sustained damage is probably where this thing is going to absolutely shine. So with the Grattler there for sort of sustained damage over time, what is there for a very quick burst of damage in a short amount of time? Well, that's pretty much the role of the Velocitus. That's what I'm going to be sort of using it for, I would imagine. If you think about the Eidolon fight, if you had a lot of Vombalists around, you really wanted to take down the limbs very quickly, you went with sort of high damage, high shot weapons, and that was things like the snipers. Well, this is effectively what this actually is, really. It is just like a sniper. You charge it up and you release this sort of devastating bolt of energy. I mean, like I say, it is literally a railgun. But the thing is, if you don't have time to do the full charge, it does have the ability just to spam it, which does obviously quite a lot less damage. But against the rank and file enemies, it means that you're probably going to be able to take things out reasonably quickly. The one downside of a lot of weapons that are like the snipers and stuff is that they are very hard to use against like massive groups of enemies. The Velocitus doesn't suffer that at all. It really is much
easier to use and is probably going to be very useful in sort of crowds of enemies. More often than not, you're probably going to have someone with a Fluxus or a Grattler that is actually clearing those out. However, the Velocitus can also do it there as well in a bit of a pinch. But it's not really what it's there for. If you look at the stats, it's sort of up on screen now. It's very much modded to be the damage dealer. Like, a very high amount of damage in a very short amount of time. You can sort of see if I take on the Golem, just watch, look how quickly I can take the Golem down if I shoot the engines. There you go. Just watch, like, bits, you just watch chunks of health get removed. It is so good. Like, it really does a lot of damage. It really does, like, when you can actually hit it. I really think that this is going to be a very big player in the meta with the killing of the spiders. I think it's going to be a very big player, and I think this
if this gets unleashed on the rest of the game, combine this with like some of the damage increasing powers like Banshee or you know, Chroma or something. This could actually be a complete monster. I can imagine this one-shotting up to very, very, very high levels. Definitely give this a go once it comes out. Once the second part of the Fortuna comes out, I think this is going to be an absolutely incredible weapon. And so that brings us on sort of the final weapon of the sort of 4 that I would pick out of all of the Archwing guns to check out. And that is pretty much the upgraded version of the OG, the Imperator, and that's the Imperator Vandal. This thing is absolutely brilliant. Like, you can only get it still from the Eyes of Blight, the Fomorian event when that comes around. It was originally Eyes of Blight, I still call it Eyes of Blight every time it comes, it's hard not to. But yeah, all the parts drop from that. But the thing is, they drop so regularly, you can probably pick up a set on the market pretty dang cheap now. But this thing absolutely puts out the damage. It really, really does. I built it for a crit and a lot of fire rates, so it fires very, very quickly. And although it's only got like a 27% crit, because it fires like 24 rounds a second before the weapon is fully spooled up, it really does crit a lot, and honestly I think the crit actually helps the damage output quite a bit as well. But this thing is the upgraded, I mean, the Imperator's the OG weapon, like I said. It's the first weapon we ever saw in Archwing, it was the demo weapon, and it was the first weapon we had as well, like when it actually first launched. So it's kind of fitting that it's still one of the best, I would say. Whenever I'm doing the Fomorian, if I'm doing the damage on the Fomorian core, I'm always using the Imperator Vandal. Because this thing chucks out so much damage, it's unreal. I think in terms of like a crowd clearing weapon, the Grappler is going to come out ahead, because just like purely because of the explosive rounds. However, I think this is going to be a very close second in terms of just like absolutely slaughtering groups, and I think this could be very, very funny to use as well. I kind of wish it would have physics too. Like, just imagine a Tenno using this and just like firing it and then just launching himself backwards or something. Would be absolutely hilarious to watch. Kind of like Stick Fight. If you ever seen Stick Fight and watched the like someone fire the minigun in that and they just fly off the map, could totally imagine that happening to a Tenno. It would be absolutely brilliant. But yeah, I can't really do one of these lists. Like, I was originally going to just do a top 3 and just be like, these are the 3 you should check out, and leave it at that. But I couldn't really not talk about the Imperator Vandal. I just could not, I couldn't leave it out. It really deserved to be on here. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, it's another one of these sort of a little bit of a different videos, a bit more talky than usual. I hope you're enjoying them. Please leave your feedback in the comments below. Let me know if there's any weapons that you think I should really go back and check out again. There are a lot of Archwing weapons that I really haven't looked at in a very, very long time. But these are the 4 that I think would be brilliant for the Scarab fight, the Spider fight, the Orb fight, whatever we want to call it, on the Fortuna Part 2. I'm going to have a lot of content coming out when that does drop. It should be this week, along with the Nyx changes I am so looking forward to, because obviously Nyx Bane, you can see her in the background right here, plus all of the other stuff as well. Super looking forward to it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I shall catch you in the next one.